Hey, here he is. Right, Director of Reasoned UK. Now, I understand that you want to start north of the border today, Dan.
Yes, I do. I want to start in Scotland because the Scottish Government are insisting, basically, they're letting us know just how authoritarian they are, right? And how much they, I guess, want to coerce people into doing stupid things. So the Scottish Government are insisting that employees sign emails with the correct pronouns, right? So you have to display your pronouns. And a recent poll showed that the majority of civil servants are against the move, and you think, oh well, just maybe don't do it. Like, maybe civil servants have other priorities to focus on, like running the country. You know, that could be an important priority, at least to me, and I imagine to most taxpayers in Scotland.
Yes.
So again, you just get into they're obsessed with this debate in Scotland. You've got people like Joanna Cherry QC, a prominent SNP MP. She is no longer Flavour of the Month because she has come out and said, well, actually, I don't think the likes of J.K. Rowling and actually a Labour MP called Rosie Duffield is a transphobe. And you just start to think, where is this debate going? And I don't mind, I'm sure you agree with this as well, that I don't mind if someone says, I want you to call me she, he, fine. Out of politeness, of course I will. But when you start getting into they and with a Z and things like that, I'm like, you've lost me now. You've totally lost me.
Well, I don't know where it ends, you know. I mean, it's a really strange one, really. And it's the idea that you hit the nail on the head there about the fact that you can be called a transphobe now simply for questioning anything, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And J.K. Rowling in particular, you know, questioning things like people who are born men who are now women who are in, in women's sport. There's one taking place at the Olympics at the moment with Laurel Hubbard, for example. You need to be able to talk about this kind of stuff. And it is strange for me now that you would almost enforce this kind of thing on, because it's a fraction of the population who are actually bothered about this kind of stuff. It's a fraction of the civil service, I would imagine, in Scotland who actually care whether or not their pronouns are accurately articulated to them. So why do we have to bow down to that? It doesn't really seem to work for any other area of society, does it? You know, no. I, for example, reckon that there's much greater parts of society who are against things like cycle lanes, but we still have cycle lanes, right? It just doesn't make sense for me.
Absolutely, no, I agree, totally agree. But I also the definition of the word transphobe, right? I guess, delegitimize genuine cases of it, because the fact of the matter is, saying that actually I don't want were you to be a parent, were you to say I do not want someone who says I am a bloke, I self-identify as a bloke, or I self-identify as a woman, to be able to access single-sex spaces. That's what J.K. Rowling was saying, and that's what really baffles me about this whole debate and how toxic it's become, because J.K. Rowling was explicitly saying, I was a victim of domestic violence in the past, and I recognise how important women's refuges are for that sort of crisis, for receiving that immediate help and, crucially, safety. And for saying that, she's being branded a transphobe. What about when there are genuine cases of it, genuine cases of homophobia, genuine cases of racism, genuine cases of all of these things? You delegitimize and take away from the severity of that charge and the severity of genuine cases of it. So I'm so sick of this debate, and I imagine most talk radio listeners are as well.
Well, they're certainly not sick of you. I've just got a tweet in from Linda. Great to see Darren Grimes live for a change and not on Zoom. So there you are. There's a lot of love.
Well, there we are. Thanks, Pet.
Yeah, absolutely. You would imagine as well in Scotland, north of the border, they've got enough on there. You know, they've got a kind of crumbling health service, their education system's knackered. They would have thought that maybe Nicola Sturgeon might be focusing on that. It is, of course, the same people there that want to bring you things like male rapists in women's prisons, isn't it?
Yeah,
Which is astonishing, but maybe not part of the course.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that the logical sort of people self-identifying and saying, do you remember the guy who self-identified as Korean?
I do indeed remember that, yeah.
So totally mad, right? And it's a mad story. But that's where this logical thread gets us. You can self-identify as anything.
Yeah.
So I've got a six-pack, Patrick. Don't know if you knew.
Well, when we go on holiday together, Darren, I'll identify as the pilot.
Well, there we go.
Let's see how far we get. You know? All right, what's next, mate?
So Tom Daley, we're talking about the Olympics and identity politics in it. So there were a few. I put out a tweet last night, for example, talking, as I often do, talking about actually how I'm not sure it's necessary to talk about the sexuality or the identities of those who do well for Team GB. I think we're so proud of our Olympics and our Olympians rather, and their success. You know, I was thrilled for Tom Daley, watching him cry to God Save the Queen. Yeah. It was really quite a stirring moment, moving moment. But I'm not sure I need to know about it. Like, I know he's gay. Yeah. It's a great, fantastic for you. I'm not sure that's relevant to the whole question of the Olympics and things like that. The only thing I guess I would say is that, yes, it's important to have the broadcast this, I guess, to the wider international community and say, all right, well, in some places you can literally be murdered for being gay.
Yes.
So I sort of get that. But the problem is they'll censor this sort of thing, right? In those sort of countries. Well, they would censor what an Olympian like Tom Daley would have to say. So basically all you end up doing is broadcasting it to our audience, the UK audience. And I think we're a country, well, despite what you'll hear from pockets of the left and most of Twitter, we are a country that is incredibly tolerant. Attitudes, even in my lifetime, from that, well, I'm contradicting myself now. I was about to say when I came out, but when I did come out at school, right, attitudes have changed massively in this country, even over that period. I'm not that old, I'm 28. And I think that's a fantastic thing. It's something to be proud of, but I'm just not sure that we need to broadcast identity and be focus on everything through that lens of identity. I think people are so fed up of this stuff. Really, really, I do.
I can see the logic from his part in a sense, which is the Olympics is essentially the pinnacle of physical condition and physical prowess, right? And there's obviously a lot of lazy stereotypes out there about homosexuals and potentially their physical ability, as it were. And so I can understand why Tom Daley wanted to make that point, right? I get that, and I think that's necessary. Also, I mean, look at the form on him. I've never seen anyone more ripped in my life. I mean, the idea that because he's gay that there's anything other than an absolute Adonis there is completely mental, right? But I think one of the arguments is that obviously there is the world's media there, and that potentially maybe this is what was one of the things that he was doing. Do you think he was trying to change attitudes, or look, do you think that maybe actually this is just too much identity politics? It's got to be in everything. It can't just be, you can't just win a gold medal and say I'm great, I'm proud to be British. He's got to bring up the fact that he's gay as well.
Yeah, exactly. I do worry about that because it's a distraction from the amazing feat that he's managed to pull off for this country, for himself, for his team, and I feel like it distracts. It takes away from, because the headline was, Tom Daley, a gay man, and all the rest of it, and it beggars belief. I had this a lot during the Brexit referendum, where it was gay conservative or gay Brexit supporter. Why is that relevant?
Go on, talk to me about that actually, mate. What was that like?
So, well, I just found it really annoying because it's not relevant to the debate at all. My views on leaving a trade and a political and economic union have absolutely naff all to do with the fact that I sleep with blokes, right? Ultimately. So I just found it really irritating and irksome. And I think that's why this stuff, I totally agree with you on all this stuff about, we should be, I guess, loud and proud, so to speak, about the fact that we in this country cherish rights and equality and all the rest of it and tolerance. But I go back to that crucial point that some, I guess, person in Qatar isn't going to be tuning in listening to what Tom Daley's got to say, right? Some government official in Qatar isn't going to be listening to what Tom Daley's got to say and think, right, that bloke that just won gold for Team GB, he's absolutely spot on. We're going to liberalise in this country. You watch, mark my words. It's just not going to happen. And it's also just not relevant to the conversation around what he has managed to do, what his life story has been, and the fact that they were talking about the fact that he was a parent as well. He's done adoption, but it never felt relevant to me around that debate, and it was actually used as a slur in a way as well, to be like, oh, he's a gay man, he can't possibly have conservative views. That I think that's one thing that I've been introduced to quite often. To be gay, you are pigeonholed as people with a certain identity have to have these views. You must be a person of the left. You're working class as well. You must be a person of the left. You're a woman. You must think these things. And I just think we're pigeonholing people.
How is that actually within? How have you found it from within the LGBTQ plus community? The fact that you are right wing.
Complete ostracised. Like I would be like a pariah. I've actually. So this is a true story and really depressing. I have been banned from Tinder, and I think it's because people have been reporting
some of the things I've seen on Tinder as well. If you're getting banned from that,
well, it's nothing dodgy, I promise. But I think it's just people reporting me out of political spite, basically saying I don't agree with this person's politics, so I'm going to report them. And basically, you're taken off these platforms for no other reason than you're a conservative.
Wow.
Well, where does that get?
Well, yeah, exactly. I'm sure there's still the odd Lonely Hearts column that might.
I'll write in. You'll have to start one.
Absolutely.